Writing in the Wall Street Journal today, for years, Powell avoided fighting Trump. That's over. And both of my next guests agree the DOJ's move and Powell's response could potentially backfire on the administration. Here to discuss are David Wessel, Senior Fellow for Economic Studies at Brookings, and Nick Timmeros, the Chief Economics Commentator at the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to you both. David, I know that you've stayed in touch rather closely with Janet Yellen, Ben Bernanke over the years, and Brookings obviously does a lot on this very issue. So what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting that the White House has decided at this time to go after Jay Powell. And he, for the first time, has really fought back. As you said, he's usually been pretty restrained. I think on one level, it's just a manifestation of President Trump's determination to control the Fed like he does everything else. He wants lower interest rates. I also think it's an attempt to harass or bully Jay Powell into leaving the Federal Reserve Board when his time as chair is up. As you know, he could remain as a governor until January 2028.
You know, I've had a lot of email messages and messages elsewhere, David, and there are a lot of people who say that, you know, they don't believe that the Fed's really independent and that the bond market revolt over their 50 basis point cut last year, that's what Larry Lindsey mentioned, that they do think that was political. I mean, what do you think the response should be to those who feel that there's no independence to be lost because there wasn't any independence there?
I think they're wrong. I think we have seen that over the last several years, the Fed has made some mistakes, but they've done it all in service of their achieving their goals of maximum employment and price stability. I think President Trump is upsetting the apple cart. He is challenging the notion that the economy works better when the Fed can set rates independent of political pressure. That's something that almost every modern developed country agrees with. It served us well for the last several decades with some hiccups. And I think he's calling into question the whole concept of an independent central bank. And that'll mean, if he succeeds, more inflation, and the U.S. will look like a less attractive investment to global investors.
And Nick, in what ways do you think this could backfire? What might that look like?
Well, Kelly, it could backfire in a few ways. One is that whoever Trump names as the next chair, if it's one of the Kevins, if it's somebody else, that person now has to run an even more difficult gauntlet in proving that or in disproving that they're not completely in the thrall of the president here. So that's one way that it backfires. It makes life a lot harder for the next chair. It backfires if it brings Senate Republicans, moderate Republicans in particular, out into the public saying we're not going to confirm a Fed chair if you don't do this, along the lines of what Senator Tom Tillis said last night. And then it could also backfire to the point David made if Powell decides to stick around, that, you know what, he was ready for a life after the Fed, but he's not going to leave the institution when there's a real existential risk that things are going to completely change, and that him holding onto his seat could be the difference between that kind of change or no change.
Nick, elaborate on that for another moment so people understand the significance of him staying wouldn't just be to thumb his nose at the president. That's my editorializing as to why he would do so, but it would have policy impact directly, you think, right?
Right. So, you know, assuming that other governors don't leave, and you do usually get vacancies throughout a 4-year term. This isn't the Supreme Court where people stay until they die. But, you know, the president only has one vacancy scheduled before January of 2028, which is when Powell's term as a governor is up. That's the seat currently held by Stephen Moran. So if the Trump administration wants to have more control over monetary policy, those seats are the way that you do it. And having a more normal transition where you don't try to push the Fed chair out with a threatened criminal investigation, that's not normal. Of course, it's not normal for the Fed chair to stick around. There's not really any precedent for staying on the board in order to protect the institution's independence. But that could be a test we run now.